Hello guys, and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now back in March I drove the brand new facelifted Volkswagen T-Roc R line, and I was so impressed with the comprehensive range of updates I couldn't wait to drive the full-blown R model. Well, today, 5 months later, thanks to the guys at Volkswagen UK, that's exactly what we're going to do. Today's video will be a full comprehensive review of the brand new Volkswagen T-Roc R. We're going to use my traditional review format, which means starting off with some statistics and then a detailed look at the outside, the inside, and then a long test drive where we look at the vehicle's driving dynamics. But before we do that, I'd just like to say a big thanks to everybody who has subscribed. It does mean a lot. If you haven't subscribed yet, then all you need to do is click the icon in the bottom right of the screen. The next 4 months will be make or break for this channel, so every view, every sub, every like does mean a lot. So whatever you can do to support the channel, it would be much appreciated. Right, let's get started by having a look at some statistics on the T-Roc R. Okay, let's start off then by talking about the thorny subject of price. A lot of new cars have gone up recently. It is not just Volkswagens. That's because of the semiconductor shortage and the war in Ukraine, meaning certain components are no longer available, and what cars manufacturers can still produce, naturally they want to make as much money on as possible. When the T-Roc R came out originally a few years ago, it was just over £39,000. Today it's £41,750, so about £2,500 more. But what you must really consider is a few years ago you could have got 10 to 15% off your T-Roc R if you timed it well. Today, discounts, they're not really that easy to come by. So in real world terms, a T-Roc R is about £6,000 to £7,000 more expensive today than it was when it was launched a few years ago. To give you some perspective with other models in the range, a Golf R is $42,190, so that's really small beer, more expensive. A Golf R Estate, which you might consider because you want a bit more practicality, is $44,535. So that's a whole just under £3,000 more than the T-Roc R, but it does have a much bigger boot. And a Tiguan R, which is an SUV but quite a lot bigger, is a lot bigger in price as well, $48,540, so about £7,000 more. What does the Tiguan R give you that the T-Roc R doesn't, apart from a bit more metal? Well, it actually gives you the full fat 320 horsepower, 420 newton meters of torque engine that is in the Golf AR. For some reason, which I will explain in a sec, T-Roc R just has 300 horsepower and 400 newton meters of torque. That's actually the same as the Mark 8 Golf GTI Club Sport. In fact, it's probably the same engine because all those cars, Golf AR, Club Sport, Tiguan R, they've all got the DNF engine code, an unfortunate 3 characters if you're into motorsports. But the reason they did that was because they wanted the Tiguan R to maintain its superiority, so to have 20 horsepower and 20 newton meters of torque more. Maybe in the future they'll give the Tiguan R 340 and give the T-Roc R the 320. Who knows? As you might not be surprised to learn, we only have the choice of a 7-speed DSG gearbox. There's no manual option. Although actually you guys in America, you got the Golf AR with a manual box. How are those clutches surviving, guys, out there? I'd love to know. Interestingly as well, we do not have the torque splitting rear differential from Magna, so there is no drift mode. I presume it's just the Haldex system that was on the older car. But that's no bad thing. It does give you, really good traction, and it gives you launch control as well, which means you can do 0 to 62 in a very impressive 4.9 seconds. It's just 0.2 of a second behind the Golf AR, although we know that can be a lot quicker. Whether this can, we'll leave it to Matt Watson to find out. Top speed is limited to 155. Let's be sensible for a moment. MPG on the combined cycle is 33.2. That doesn't sound too bad. And CO2 emissions are 194 grams per kilometre, which actually I think is a good chunk worse than the Golf AR, probably because it has the aerodynamics of a brick. Size-wise, it's very interesting. Compared to the Golf, the T-Roc is 49 millimeters shorter, but 30 millimeters wider and 82 millimeters taller. It's very interesting to compare its size though with a Tiguan, which I find a very big car to drive. This feels actually quite compact. It's just under 30 centimeters shorter than a Tiguan R, 20 millimeters narrower and 102 millimeters lower. How do we get on in the boot then? Well, You would think, being an SUV, it might have a bigger boot than a Golf, and if you have a two-wheel drive T-Roc, that is true. You have 445 litres. That's 17% bigger than a Golf, but unfortunately 4Motion models, which this one is, and there are others in the range as well, only have a boot size of 392 litres versus a Golf 380, and also, as I'll show you later, you can't actually lower the boot floor. Okay, now let's have a look at the outside of the brand new facelifted T-Roc R. Okay guys, as usual, let's start off then with the front of the T-Roc R. Now with the pre-facelift model, the R-Line and the R were quite different at the front. With the facelift car, that gap has closed quite a lot because they both got very similar bumper treatment. I have it on good authority, only the R model for the UK market gets a triple stack of LEDs. The R-Line doesn't in the UK, but it does in other markets. I'm pretty sure only the R has 3 proper working air intakes, so they've all got big radiators in there, no fakery, because this is a performance car. It needs all the air it can get. It's worth pointing out the model badge has now moved to the left hand side of the vehicle. That's the first time I can remember on a small VW since 1998, and the Mark III Golf GTI and VR6. I think it looks better over there from a design perspective. That's good. What I don't like though is that it looks pretty much identical to the R-Line. I gather it's slightly different, but you have to be a bigger nerd than me to notice that difference. We've also got the LED matrix headlights on this car, £1,650 extra. It's worth pointing that out because on the Golf 8R they're standard, so spec a T-Roc R with them and you're a grand north of the Golf 8R. But they are brilliant headlights. They're standard on the Club Sport as well. I did a winter commuting with them and I wouldn't want to be without them. They also give you dynamic indicators on the back, though weirdly not on the front, and the ever so Marmite light bar, which some people love, some people hate. But yeah, overall I think it looks the business. Obviously Lapiz blue, signature colour for R models, remains exclusive to the R, and that does, yeah, look pretty good. It is quite a blingy car though, so if you want to dechrome it, there is a black design pack for about £165 that gets rid of most of the exterior chrome and some bits inside as well. Let's now move on to the wheels. So standard wheels are the 18-inch Jerez wheels, which you'll know from the Golf 8R. These are the 19-inch Estorils. The 18-inch wheels come with quite narrow 215/50/18 tyres, so quite a bit of more profile and a bit narrower, but that's probably no problem on a four-wheel drive car. It might be quite fun. These 19s come with 235/40/19, so a tiny bit more profile than on the Golf. There is another option though. You can have 19-inch Pretorias, which was the standard wheel on the pre-facelift car. They come in a matte grey colour and they're £785 extra, just like the Estorils. The 18s come with Falcon and Bridgestone tyres. The Hancooks are standard on the 19s along with Continentals. Let's now talk about the brakes then. So the pre-facelift T-Roc R was always a bit weird because it came with 2-piece brake discs as standard, when on the Golf R you had to have the performance pack to get those, though they were never drilled, as they aren't on this car. They were drilled on the performance pack. We get blue calipers for the first time, got the folded paperclip logo on there. Now these aren't the brakes from the Mark 8 Golf R, which are 357mm. These are the old ones, 340s, but they're still pretty good for the road. Whether they'd hold up on the track, I don't know. Is anyone going to take one on track? Well, actually, having driven one on the road, I think it has got potential on the track, but we'll talk about that when we do the driving. Another thing that's kind of bugging me is that we've got a lot of gloss black everywhere, apart from down the side of the car where we have these unpainted wheel arch trims. Now, I spent a long time polishing Mark II Golf GTIs, and it was a real pain to try and avoid getting the wax on those. So yeah, masking tape is your friend, but wow, I'd rather they were gloss or painted or something. The side of the car is pretty much identical to the old model, apart from the fact we have got the folded paperclip logo on the dagger badge there. Tailgate spoiler doesn't look particularly special to me, not like it would be on a Golf R with performance pack. Rear discs are nothing special either, they're just vented. And this car's on the Hankook tyre option, by the way. At the back, things are quite a bit different. For a start, we have got a new signature to the LED rear lights. It looks a lot more modern, They're tinted as they always would be on an R model. We've got the folded paperclip logo. We have got the new one-dimensional Volkswagen badge. Biggest and most obvious difference, although maybe not so on a black car, is that we have now got a full width black, gloss black inlay to the rear bumper, which has the effect of making the car look lower and wider. Yeah, I quite like that. And on this car, we have got £3,450 worth of a Krapovich titanium exhaust system. Now, whether you think that's value for money or not, I don't want to say, but you could have the LED matrix headlights and a pan roof and have a lot of change. So that would probably be my choice. But if you want to spec everything, then go for it. It does sound a bit better. It does look pretty cool as well. I think the rear of this car is probably its strongest look. So yeah, overall, I hope we'll all agree, it is a good looking car. When I parked it in between these two low sexy sports cars, they were pretty much invisible, which I was really, really surprised about. Right, now let's have a look inside the new facelift T-Roc R, because there are even more changes in there. Okay, let's start off then by talking about the biggest problem with the pre-facelift T-Roc interior, and that was the quality of the dash plastics. Well, I'm pleased to report things have improved an awful lot. Gone is that big expanse of hard, scratchy plastic. Instead, we have got the best soft touch dash I've seen in a long time. And not only do we have that, we've got this very convincing joint and stitching as if it was like a leather dashboard. In fact, it looks pretty much identical to the stitching in that Boxster there. So yeah, that's really, really nice and does make all the difference. The door cards are a little bit disappointing on Golf 8. At least we've got soft padding on the top of the door, that when it's the front door, we don't have it on the back. But overall, the door card at the front looks okay. We've got soft touch there, fake leather there, blue stitching, ambient lighting in the gloss black inlay, which matches the dash. But I didn't notice this when I had a look at the R line a few months ago. I'm not sure it was the same, but it probably was. There's no blue stitching, there's no ambient lighting. That's hard, scratchy plastic, not padded. That's just barely padded. But the biggest weird thing is that this is like a different inlay to that altogether, like it's from a different model. So yeah, that's a real shame. Anyway, the seats are pretty good. They're, I think, more interesting to look at than the original T-Roc R interior, which I think was just a plain grey. So we've got some blue in here, we've got embroidered R badge, we've got 3 different types of fabric, blue stitching, manual lumbar support, and they're really good seats if they're like the ones in the Golf 8R, supportive and comfortable. There is a carbon leather option that comes with winter pack standard for about £2,400. Down here we've got an aluminium sill protector, which you never get on a Golf, which is a nice touch. I don't think it's illuminated though. The floor mats are pretty good with the R logo on a separate tab, blue piping, blue stitching, stainless pedals. So yeah, overall I think it's just about acceptable for the, you know, sticker price of the car. Let's now have a look at the steering wheel, which is pretty much identical. In fact, I think it is identical to the one in the Golf 8R. That does mean it has haptic buttons, but people do not hide behind the sofa. They actually work really well. I don't know if they've improved them. They seem to have made the way they operate a little bit more reliable. So for example, the R button, which is unique to the R models, lets you cycle the modes. Now one light press lets you just switch from mode to mode, but if you really want to get into race mode from comfort, say, just press it hard and you get 2 clicks. Got the big paddles as well, and we've got the Digital Cockpit Pro 10.25 inch screen. It's pretty configurable. I'm not sure it's as configurable as in the Golf, but it's good enough for most. And you can have navigation in the center if you want, but you can't have it simultaneously with this screen here. And this is the standard infotainment system, I believe, with the knobs for the volume and selecting between stations, etc. If you upgrade to the Pro version, it's quite expensive, and I can't really see what the benefit is. You lose the knobs as well. Screen might be a bit bigger, but yeah, to pay more and lose the knobs seems a bit counterintuitive. So yeah, stick with this. There is some suggestion that you have to have the Pro one to get DAB, but it's here, so I don't think that's the case. It'd be weird to have a modern car without DAB, wouldn't it? Because yeah, it's pretty standard now. The heater vents feel nicely weighted and good quality. That's good. We have got some buttons here for the traction control, although a bit like the pre-facelift car, the way the whole thing sort of moves is a bit disconcerting. Anyway, the climate control panel is updated and remains outside infotainment. You will be glad to know there aren't any knobs or buttons, but it is touch sensitive and it seems to be pretty nice to operate. Really, yeah. Yep, I like that. We've got winter pack as well, which is an extra cost option. Oh my god, it's blowing like a helicopter. There we go. And you can adjust the temperature by sliding up and down, which is a neat trick, but you can also stab at it like a very impatient person if you'd rather do it that way. Okay, that's good. We have got a traditional shifter, not the stubby one, which means that if you want Tiptronic mode, you do that, which is kind of good because it does lock it into manual mode. On those stubby ones, it does stay into manual mode for a long time, but I don't know, if you're used to these, I don't think you'll probably miss the stubby one, although I don't really like that grey sort of fake leather gaiter. Keyless entry and go, 2 USB sockets. Wireless charging is not standard, that's extra, but wireless app connect for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is, and it seems to work okay. We've got off-road modes as well, if you want to go off-road with your 19-inch wheels. And normal mode, you can do that, but also, as I say, you can use the R button instead. What else have we got? Electric parking brake with auto hold. You don't really have to touch that at all, it just looks after itself really nicely. Beats sound packs, £470, gives you the little logo on the tweeters there. That's the only sort of sign it's fitted, but you do have a subwoofer in the boot, you do have an amplifier and more speakers. Glove box is damped but not lined, but it looks okay. I kind of find this a little bit too shiny because this isn't soft touch at all, so I really want to get some sort of window cleaner on there, some very light solvent, and just make it a little bit more matte to match the lovely dashboard. But yeah, overall guys, it's a pretty nice place to be here. What's it like in the back? Well, let's find out, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be carrying kids, etc. Before we do that though, sorry, I should have pointed out, saving grace of Golf 8 is that you can switch the lane assist off with a button on the end of that stalk. Well guys, that's not here. You have to do it on the infotainment, like this, and then lane assist off. So it's not too bad, but it's not as good as that. And we've got adaptive cruise control as standard. But interestingly, on this car, the speed limit preview, which is what drove me mad on my Market Golf GTI Club Sport, where the car sets the cruise control speed based upon the traffic signs, the speed limit signs. That's not been enabled on this car. Whether that's been deliberately turned off by VW UK, I don't know, but I'm pretty glad. So it just works like ACC we know and love, as on Mark 7.5 Golf. Right, let's have a look in the back. Did I say the mirrors beam the R logo onto the floor as well? That's quite a nice touch for a puddle light. Okay, seats in my driving position. I'm 6 foot and I've got an inside leg of 32 inches and I'm just about comfortable here. If I was Joe Achilles, I probably would not be. Headroom though is probably okay even for Joe. So that's good being an SUV. It's a little bit higher than in a Golf. So I'd be okay for short journeys, but I wouldn't want to be in here for very long. But for kids, it's fine. But you carry a lot of paraphernalia with kids. Have you got enough room in the boot for that? Well, let's have a look, because being four-wheel drive, like I said earlier, you lose some of that space. So boot opens with the Volkswagen logo. And actually in there you can see the rear camera, which is an extra something like £370. You get front and rear parking sensors as standard, by the way. Okay, so the boot floor looks pretty high to me, and for some reason, even though there's nothing there, you can't have it sitting on the foam inlay. So that's a bit weird. We've got 60/40 seat, so it's split here, and we don't have any stowage down here as well, which is, if you buy like a carton of milk, it could be sort of rolling all over the place. You can put it down here. We don't have the spare wheel. That's an extra £100 option for a space saver. Just a subwoofer there for Beats and a toolkit. What I have noticed is that this is really, really hard to pull down. So some people might find that a little bit difficult. there is a blank for the power tailgate, but I haven't seen that as an option on the configurator, which I think is a bit of an oversight because people kind of tend to expect that at this kind of price point. So here it is, guys, 2 litre 4-cylinder petrol turbo, 300 horsepower, 400 newton meters of torque, 7-speed DSG, DNF engine code, which you may be able to see down there. And it doesn't look too weird now because I've seen a lot of cars like this, but there's no engine cover on it because that's been removed due to the, it's not really a recall, but a workshop action, because in spirited driving situations, it can sort of sit on the turbo and catch fire, which obviously is not very good. So they've just been removed now until Volkswagen redesign that. But yeah, that is the underbonnet of the T-Roc R. And that means now it's time to go and drive it. So let's go and hit the road in the brand new T-Roc R. Okay guys, well, this is probably one of the most important driving sections of a video I've ever made, because I feel the T-Roc R has got one major dynamic flaw which really affects its daily usability, and being an SUV, that's quite important. Major dynamic flaws don't really come along all that often in modern cars, but anyway, we'll talk about that more later. Let's start off normally now. Let's talk about the key, because I was a bit disappointed to see we had the sort of 10-year-old key from the Golf 7. The good news is it doesn't scratch because it's not glossy like the new one. Well, you can scratch it if you really try hard. Bad news is it does look a bit dated now. Driving position, it's an SUV, so it should be different to a Golf, but actually you can get the seat nice and low. It's on its lowest setting now. I'm 6 foot tall. I can still get my mouth in line with the top of the steering wheel, which is how I like it. If you want to sit a bit higher, you can do that as well. I can't remember how many clicks there are. It's probably something like 30. I tried it in the original T-Roc. If you want to watch that video, I'll put a link in the description of this video. But you can go so high, you can pretend you're in a Range Rover and look at the top, almost to the front bumper. It's so adjustable. Right, let's drive then. We're going to be in normal mode to start off with. Let's turn off the sensors. That's going to race. That's normal, and let's go. Now, before we start to drive it a bit hard, I just want to point out it's a very docile car. 7-speed DSG, particularly in normal mode or comfort mode, just shuffles along really nicely, and yeah, and there's no penalty to pay for how quick it shifts when you're really on it. So yeah, it's hard to fault, although I'm a little bit disappointed we do not have full manual mode when in manual mode and race mode, which I think you can get on the Golf 8R. So it will change up, it will kick down, and it will change up at the rev limiters. So yeah, it's not fully manual, but that's probably going to be affecting a very minor amount of people who would buy this car, so no big deal. What is annoying though is that we do get the bong when you're not driving in the middle of the lane, and on country lanes the edge can be really chewed up, so that does bug me. And also I think it's a little bit louder than in my Golf Club Sport, which makes it even more annoying. So there is a bit of fake noise in normal mode. It's pretty much gone in comfort mode, and it's a bit louder in race mode, but it's not too terrible. Let's actually put it in race mode now. We're going to do that with the R button. 2 clicks there, and there we go. So we have got 300 metric horsepower, 400 newton meters of torque, 0 to 62 4.9. That's still pretty impressive. Okay, it's down on the Golf 8R, but don't think this car is slow, because it most certainly is not. Worth pointing out, this EA888 Gen 3, it's super fast in this car, but it's also super efficient. If it's anything like the one in my Golf 8 Club Sport, which it should be, it's the same rating, that was doing over 40 miles to the gallon on a regular basis. Okay, we're a bit higher up, so the aerodynamics are a bit less favourable, plus we have a bit more weight, but I think it'll still be more efficient than you might expect in the real world. Brakes, well, let me just stop you from 60 now. Oh my god, there's a telegraph pole in the road. Yeah, I think we were going to do an endo then, like Eddie Kidd, but yeah, hazards have come on. They're pretty fierce, as you'd expect of a modern car. If I was going to be critical, I'd say they're sort of a bit hard to modulate. So there's a little bit of dead travel at the top of the pedal, and then you go in and they're sort of all or nothing, but you do get used to that. We've got the Akrapovic exhaust, which means pops and bangs are plenty. Whether the standard exhaust will do that, I don't know, because I haven't driven one. Generally, they do. The Akrapovic just has a sort of a nicer tone, but that's by and large only audible when you're outside the car. But I've got some flyby footage of this car just driving along, and you can hear the exhaust, which is unusual on a modern car. It's got petrol particulate filter, but I'm a firm believer that if they spend enough time developing exhaust systems, they can make them sound as good as they want them to do, and this does sound better actually than I was expecting, and I'd expect the standard exhaust to be pretty much the same. But what really impressed me wasn't that, it's got a good turning circle as well. It's the chassis. So we're on this road I know really well, too well from years of commuting on it. So let me just demonstrate what this car can do. We're in race mode. We've got DCC, £975 option, so that's stiffened everything up. We've got a bit more weight in the steering. We haven't got torque vectoring, so it will nibble into understeer if you push hard enough, but generally it's got loads of grip. But it's just such a flat cornering car, it's unbelievable. If we had an artificial horizon, I'm pretty sure it would stay resolutely horizontal, and I just wasn't expecting that. You could, I reckon, maybe with a change of tyres, track day this car. It would be a lot of fun. It's just one of the best handling cars I've ever driven. I hope Steve Sutcliffe from Evo magazine will take this around Bedford Autodrome, because I'd love to see how it compares with the more usual suspects like Leon Cooper, Golf 8R, Club Sport, etc., because I think it wouldn't be too far off. But all that agility does come at a price, and this is where the T-Roc R falls down for me, but we need to find a slightly different road to go into a bit more detail on that. Okay guys, for the rest of this test we are now going to be in comfort mode, so I'll just confirm that by pressing it on the screen there. For definite we're in comfort mode, and I just want you to watch what's happening in the cabin on this actually not too bad B road. So this is comfort mode in DCC, and I can't really get over how turbulent the ride is, and it's not even a bad road, this. And it's not just sort of undulations, you can feel every sort of texture change. There's a bit of wear here under the shadow of the trees, and you can just feel it. And in something like a Porsche 911 GT3, that's probably a good thing, but I just wonder who will really buy this car when its suspension is this hard. Now the funny thing is, I drove the first T-Roc R 3 years ago in Gloucestershire on 19s on passive dampers, so no comfort mode, and I didn't really notice the ride. And Gloucestershire roads are awful, as I just said. So I'm slightly confused by what's happening. I haven't heard there have been any changes to the chassis, but it feels like the spring rates have gone up, and when the springs are hard, the dampers, even with DCC and comfort mode, they can't really influence the ride that much. And okay, if you live in a city, you may think you're going to be immune to it, but actually I think broken roads like in Birmingham, a lot of cities, speed humps, it is going to be quite a jarring car. Now I did check the tyre pressures and they were actually bang on, so we can't blame that. Will 18s be any better? I don't know, maybe, but will they be better enough? That's really difficult to say. So the problem is, if you're enjoying a road like this, undulations can kind of upset your line quite a lot. And yeah, I mean, it's quite nice in comfort mode for giving it the beans, but you want to back it off a little bit more just when you're not in the mood, and there's no option to do that, which I found really strange. This is what happened many years ago when cars were developed for Germany, where the roads are more like this, pretty much billiard table smooth, and they just didn't come over to the UK to see our weird roads. The first car they did that I know of was the Mark 5 Golf GTI, and that's why that car works really well in the UK. It's a lot more compliant than this car, even in comfort mode. So yeah, I think we ought to rename the new facelift T-Roc R the T-Roc R, because it is a pretty firm ride, that's for sure. Well guys, that's the facelifted Volkswagen T-Roc R then. I think it looks really good. There's a lot of customization available with the black styling pack, the black roof, a good range of wheels, and unlike the Golf 8R, there's also a good range of colours available. We've also now got an interior worthy of a Volkswagen thanks to the facelift, but the biggest revelation for me was the chassis. The way the car goes around corners, it's incredibly poised and agile, but that's also the problem because I don't spend an awful lot of time going around corners like my trousers are on fire. Like most other people, I just spend a lot of the time behind the wheel plodding along, and all that time I'll be doing that, I'm going to be annoyed by the choppy ride. To kind of validate that verdict, I actually managed to drive today a Mark 8 Golf GTI Club Sport, which is a kind of notoriously firm car. I ran one for over a year, and compared to the T-Roc R, in comfort mode with DCC, that Club Sport had passive dampers. It feels plush. It's still a firm car, but the way it deals with the bumps is a lot more sophisticated, and I put that down to the fact that it's not an SUV. Its centre of gravity is much lower. There's got to be a compromise with raising a car like this off the ground, yet trying to make it sporty. Raising it up is not what people do when they want to make a car sporty, and the compromise, I think, is the ride. So if you're thinking about buying one, I suggest you go for a long test drive, and I think you might really want 18-inch wheels and DCC, at least in the UK. Obviously this verdict only really applies to UK roads, which are unique. If you live in a country where roads are well maintained, such as Germany, then I don't think you'll have a problem at all. It'd be a very, very appealing car over there. Anyway guys, thanks as ever for watching this Volkswizard video. If you've enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do comment. I do read them all and try and reply to all of them. And please, as I said earlier, please do subscribe, because it's a very important few months for the channel. And I'll see you for the next video very soon.